Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Suitable Mission in the True Off My Chest subreddit. The post is titled, "My husband left our 5 years old and 9-month-old home alone and refuses to explain why. My husband is 43 and I'm 31. We've been married for 7 years and have a 5-year-old and a 9-month-old. My husband left our children alone and he refuses to admit to it or tell me where he was. I'm furious, enraged, and my husband keeps telling me I'm making a big deal about nothing. This just happened this weekend. I'm on the board of directors for a local nonprofit organization, and I had to attend an event for that organization this past Saturday. I was gone for most of the day, and my husband was supposed to be home with our kids. I texted him a few times, and he responded. When I called around midday, he didn't respond, but that's not very unusual. Shortly after that, I got a call from my mom. She said my son had just called her, and when she asked him what he and his sister were doing, he said they were both watching TV. When she asked where their dad was, he said his dad wasn't there. My mom asked him several other questions, and from my son's responses, she believed he was telling the truth, that my husband wasn't there and that there was no adult there at all. She said he didn't seem scared to be alone or worried about where his dad was. He just called her to chat. He has a tablet designed for children with pre-programmed contacts that he can call. It's only a few people, just family members. I left the event immediately and began texting and calling my husband repeatedly. He didn't respond to my first several attempts. It took him about 10 minutes to respond. I was so confused, so worried, really mad, and I asked him where he was. He said he was at home. I told him our son had just told his grandmother that he was home alone with his baby sister watching TV about 15 minutes ago. My husband denied it, and I told him I was too upset to talk and drive. When I got home, I checked on the kids right away, and they were both fine. I asked my husband again, where was he? He said he was home the entire time. He doesn't know what our son was talking about, but he must have just been confused since he had gone to the basement to do some laundry. I ran down to the basement. It was the same load of laundry I'd thrown in the dryer the night before. He didn't do any laundry when I was gone. I asked my husband why my son would be confused about whether his dad was home or not. Where in our home would he have gone and for how long? For our son to think his dad wasn't home. That doesn't make sense with a 5-year-old and a 9-month-old. You wouldn't leave them unattended that long. Why was he nowhere to be found when my mom asked my son to go check certain areas of the house? I begged my husband to just admit it, to stop treating me like an idiot, and to stop accusing our son of lying. Just tell me the truth, because being lied to right to my face is so incredibly maddening. He insists he was home, but he can't come up with any believable story of where he was or what he was doing during that time. The way he answers me when I ask him about this and demand truthful answers is so dismissive. When I tell him, "You left our children alone," he quickly says, "No, I didn't, so anyway." He says I'm overreacting and letting our son's imagination drive me crazy. I am convinced he was gone. We don't have a Ring camera, but at least one of our neighbors does. I'm so upset about this that I'm tempted to ask our neighbor for the footage. I had to go out to my car and scream and cry because I got so upset. Of course, I didn't want my kids to see my reaction. I can't put into words how upset I am about the fact that I know he must have really left them alone, but I have no proof and am being treated like I'm just a paranoid nutcase of a mother and woman by him. User Obvious Miscreant said, "When my now ex did this, it was because of drugs. I didn't know about it. He told me months later after I found out that he often left at night and left the kids in the living room together, so if the house burned down, at least they'd be together. My youngest was under a year old and the oldest was 5. Don't stop asking questions." User Chair said, "Get the Ring camera footage. That way you have proof either way. There's nothing wrong with getting some footage. Just tell your neighbor that a package was stolen and you just want to see if someone stole it, or you simply wondered what time your husband left that day. You don't have to explain it, just get the information. That is the only way to end this dispute. You will know if he was lying, and if you can prove he is lying to you, maybe he will come clean. Even if not, you'll know you're not crazy and he can't say you are. I know this is Reddit, but everyone will have their theories. However, this is the only way to find the truth." User Body But Sadi said, "It's either drugs or an affair. Also, the fact that your 5-year-old was calm and nonchalant about the situation makes me believe that he does this frequently enough that the kids are used to it. To this, OP said, "My mom said she and my son chatted for at least 5 minutes before she asked him where his dad was, and when she asked that, she still didn't think anything was wrong. She was just trying to make conversation. He gave no indication that anything was wrong, and when she started asking him more questions regarding his dad's whereabouts, he didn't seem fazed." Update: last weekend, my husband left our 5-year-old and 9-month-old home alone while I was gone, and then he refused to admit it or provide a plausible explanation. Since then, we've had many arguments about it. I've been living in a constant state of anger and frustration. I didn't want to fight about it anymore, but I couldn't help it, and I kept bringing it up again and again. I couldn't lay low and pretend to get over it while I waited for him to do it again and catch him in whatever was going on. I also knew that demanding he tell me the truth wasn't going to get me anywhere, since he'd been refusing to talk and deflecting for days. All it was doing was making me enraged and feeling like I was about to have a brain aneurysm. I told him to hand me his phone so I could check his location at the time. He refused, saying he wouldn't do it and that it was a violation of his privacy. He won't be treated that way and refuses to give in to my delusions. You think I enjoy being in a situation where I have to beg my husband to show me his phone so I can see where he was? I hate it. I don't want to live that way. I told him it's simple. If he was really at home the entire time, just prove it. Why wouldn't he want to clear this whole thing up? I got so mad that he wouldn't turn over his phone that I told him I was going to the neighbors to get their doorbell footage. At first, he was like, "Fine, go do it." He didn't think I actually would. He knows I don't like to air drama to others, so he probably figured I'd just swallow all of this crap he's been giving me. Luckily, I was totally driven by anger at this point, so nothing was going to stop me from going to the neighbors. When I actually started to go out the door, he tried to stop me and followed me out. I felt pure anger rushing through my veins, nothing else. The neighbor, who I've probably said less than 10 words to in the entire time we've lived here, told me he'd send me the footage. I went home, told my husband that the neighbor didn't have the footage from that day anymore, and told him I just needed to go to the store and cool off. So I put the kids in the car and went and parked somewhere while I waited for the neighbor to send me the footage. I have the neighbor's number now too, and he told me if I need any more footage, he will be happy to give it to me. The video shows a blue car that I don't recognize pulling up and parking in our driveway. A blonde woman gets out of the car and goes towards my house. She walks on the outside of our garage toward the gate leading to our backyard. The gate is too far back and out of the way to be seen on the doorbell footage. She and her car were there for 23 minutes. Imagine that. The car leaves right around the time that my husband called me to say he was home and had been home the entire time, as I was rushing home in a panic and calling him on repeat. There are two possibilities as to where they went. She either came in through the side door of the house, which does provide direct access to the basement, or, and what I think is more likely, is that they were in the backmost area of our yard, which is a gated pool area. Immediately behind our house is a grass lawn, then you step down a few steps and we have a patio, and then there is a fully gated area where the pool is. It's not like you think of when you picture a gated pool. It's a full 6-foot wood fence all the way around, plus even taller landscaping for added privacy. You can't see into the area at all unless you're inside. I think it's more likely that they were back there because my son said his dad's keys were gone and we keep that gate locked with a key. The pool is closed for winter, but there is one small building back there and there is a covered patio with furniture. I'm convinced that's where they were. So technically he was home, but in an area totally removed from the house and where he couldn't see or hear the kids if something happened. I asked him how he could explain this. What were they doing? He wasn't contrite. He showed no remorse. He was just like, "Yeah, she was here, but I obviously never left." Who is she? How long has this been going on? And if he's going to be such a disgusting, despicable excuse of a man, then why couldn't he at least have found any other time and any other lie or excuse other than when he was home alone with our kids? I told him I know this has happened before and I demanded to know how many times he's done this when he's been home alone with the kids. He swears this is the only time, but he still doesn't have the courage to confess to what they were doing. I don't believe him that this was the only time, by the way. I still have so many questions, and I still feel like my heart is beating 200 times a minute. My blood pressure is through the roof. I've cried a lot, sobbed, begged for somebody to help me, yelled, screamed, and ordered a bunch of books about divorce and custody. And you know what? The next day, after our multiple explosive fights, him putting his hands on me and me seeing the evidence, he acted like everything was totally normal and like none of that stuff ever happened. I woke up still seething, exhausted, and broken, and he's acting like everything is totally normal. He said he was ordering breakfast to be delivered from our favorite breakfast place. He asked if I wanted to go to the store together later and try this new recipe for chili tonight. What? Why would I want to do any of these things with you now? Absolutely no acknowledgement of anything he's done or what's transpired between us in the past few days. He deserved an Oscar for how well he was able to act like none of that happened, completely comfortable and non-fazed. I know that it's a waste of my energy, but I just desperately want him to admit the full truth of what he did that day and any other day with this woman. I want to hear it from him. It won't change whatever he's done, but he could at least have the respect and decency to be honest now that he's been caught. That's a ridiculous thought though, right? How foolish of me to expect this man to show decency and honesty now. If he was a decent and honest man, then he wouldn't have had a strange woman over to our house and been out of sight from our kids for 23 minutes. His continued denial and refusal to admit to anything other than the bare minimum, his attitude like I'm somehow being controlling or infringing on his rights by asking for information, that's almost more hurtful than him cheating on me. This next post was made in the same subreddit by a user named Wrong Essay. The post is titled, "I think my husband's mistress thinks he is richer than he actually is. My friend thinks I am wrong for keeping silent. We have been together for 14 years and living together for 11. He came and told me that he was in love about 3 weeks ago. I was surprised at the lack of concern I had when receiving such information. I did love him, but maybe my love has always been conditional and its survival depends on it being reciprocated, because it literally vanished the second he confessed to me that he was in love with another woman. He didn't want a separation, but rather to maybe open the relationship or let his feelings for her subside. I said it was over. It was as if I never had feelings for him ever. He was taken aback by my indifference, which I thought was audacious. Did he want me to be hurt and suffer? I told him that he should be relieved that he didn't cause pain. Instead, he has been sulking since. Last Friday, I got home and the mistress was there, sitting in my kitchen, sipping my tea. I felt nauseous because, seriously, I told them that this wasn't civil at all and to never be in my home again, or I would call the cops. I went to my room and I heard her yelling at him for not standing up for her. Then I heard her say something very curious. Why haven't you kicked her out yet? He was trying to tell her to lower her voice, whispering, later. We can discuss this later. She left and he came to me apologizing. He said, we didn't have sex here if this is what you are scared of. She just dropped by because I was working from home today. I told him that he had until the end of March to move out and to find somewhere to be during the weekends. This morning, I changed all the locks. From now on, he isn't allowed in my place during my working hours, so if he starts later or finishes earlier, he needs to wait for me to come home and let him in. But his mistress's words stuck with me, so during the weekend, I have been stalking her social media. I think she thinks that he is rich, or at least that he owns my apartment. I think she also thinks that my parents' summer house and boat are his. Unfortunately, the loser has taken her there, probably bragging about his wealth because her hashtags were all about the good life. I was telling my best friend all of this, but she was more agitated than indignant on my behalf. She told me that he was a scum for not telling the mistress the truth. I agreed. I know, right? But then she said I was no better for not explaining to her his situation either. I was dumbfounded, but she was serious. I told her that it wasn't my job to bring the mistress back to reality. My best friend got very angry and demanded that I give her the mistress's username so that she could warn her. No, I said. She called me a bigger douche than he is then. I don't know what's going on with these people. Have they gone mad or have I? When did our moral compass go askew like this? Can someone tell me that I am not insane? Update, I did it. I had a showdown with my former best friend via text and confronted her about her non-existent support when I went to her with my woes. I told her that she concentrated on the wrong issue. She should have been my shoulder to cry on. She should have shown up with wine, ice cream, and a shovel, but instead, she called me a bigger douche than my husband. She tried to gaslight me, and I realized that she's always been a good gaslighter, so I interrupted her before she made me out to be the villain. I asked her bluntly, was he married when you started sleeping together? You told us that he was married before. We all knew that, but we all were under the impression that he was married and divorced before you two met. But was he still married? Is that why you related to the mistress and felt sympathy for her because you were her? She didn't answer me until the next day, when she called me a bitter and jealous bitch. Wow, this was the last one-on-one interaction with her that I have decided to have. She's been my friend since preschool, but now we need to go our separate ways, not only to save us from future hurt, but also to save our memories together from hurt. I talked to my husband too and asked him not to make the separation difficult and bitter, so it ruins all the happiness we felt being together. We cannot think back on 1/3 of our lives with resentment. I asked him to take my dad's offer. He offered to help him find a lease on an apartment and pay half a year's rent if he moved out without giving me problems. When I got home, he and his clothes were gone. He left an apology letter saying that he will always love me and never meant to hurt me. So I have finally been able to cry my eyes out, and it felt so good. I have been crying since I got home. I lost 2 of my closest people, but this is what happens when we hit hardships. We see people's true faces. This is my update. I don't know if anything major will happen to make more updates. It is time for me to move on. User Lemmy Historian said, alright, that's the best ending, but I really wanted to know the mistress's reaction once she found out. To this user Vivid Farm said, I suspect that the next married man she is a mistress to will be vetted to make sure he actually has money. All this effort and she ends up in a rented apartment with no boat or beach house, so no good life. Bloody good karma. User Horizontal Bob said he never meant to hurt her, but he invited his mistress into his girlfriend's apartment for a cup of tea. To this, a deleted user said he totally tried to hurt her with that move, probably as retaliation for her lack of concern when he first told her about the affair. He was absolutely upset that she wasn't fighting for him. This final post was made in the marriage subreddit about 6 months ago. The post is titled, My husband just slapped me and I am seriously contemplating on divorce. I realized that my husband's health wasn't good after we started living together. He never mentioned anything to me before, and after I saw him struggling with appetite loss, vomiting, headaches, and fatigue, I asked his brother, and he confirmed that he had been that way for some time. Because we said in sickness and in health, I have tried my best to ensure I make healthy meals for him and support him in any way I can. However, recently his health has deteriorated. Last week, he had to be rushed to the hospital, and when I asked him about it after he came back, he said the doctors found nothing. They only found his blood levels were low. Since then, we have tried to eat foods that help increase blood levels, even though his body doesn't like those kinds of foods. When his friends and family call to ask about him, he lies to them that he is fine, but I stay with him, and I know he is not fine. So today, he woke up really sick and vomited despite having not eaten anything. My heart aches. I made him ginger tea and he said I should add more and more sugar. I also made sweet potatoes and eggs, but he said he wants bread instead. I gave him what he wants and I tried to reason with him after I heard him call the doctor, complaining that he isn't feeling any better. The doctor advised him to go in and get checked again. I tried to tell him that we can try to fix his health by cutting down on sugar and gluten and that he should try exercising. But he got so agitated and came towards me, grabbed my arm, and dug his fingernails into my skin. Then he punched me while asking, "Do you think I am unhealthy? Are you a doctor? Do you think I have no energy now?" I tried to tell him that I am only telling him the bitter truth that no one will tell him. He then went ahead to slap me with anger. To be honest, this is not the first time he has been violent towards me, but I keep blaming myself. Maybe I don't understand him. Maybe I am a bit insensitive. We have one child and I plan to have more and build a good family with him, but I am now conflicted. Our baby is still young, luckily, or else she would see how violent her father is, because he can be violent in front of the baby. Has anyone else been through this before? Also, men, why would you fight a woman who definitely can't fight back? Because when he punched me, I was literally covering my face and begging him not to. I wonder, apart from violence and motivation to work on himself, he is perfect. I wonder if that's enough reason for divorce. I'm also beginning to find it hard to submit to his leadership when he cannot lead himself. User Silent Sid said, "This marriage needs to end." To this user Traditional Payment said, "OP, this is the only answer. Your husband is probably doing drugs behind your back, thus the sickness with no explanation. His family needs to know what he did, and you need to let your parents know he is being abusive. Would you want your daughter to be stuck with an abusive person? And no, that husband of yours isn't perfect otherwise. You have low standards." User Lurker the Pip said, "He lied to you about who he is. Now he's abusive. Get out before you end up pregnant or in the hospital yourself. Divorce him." him. User Kippa King said, "You never submit to anyone ever. A marriage is a partnership, a team effort, not a dictatorship. The vow in sickness and in health should only apply when your husband is listening to medical advice and actively working on it. He hit you, leave him and take out a restraining order. I wish you well." Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and thank you also to partner of the channel, Gamersupps. Use code DLAM to support the channel and get 10% off of your purchase, link in the description. I'm sure many of you like me have a hankering for daily caffeine, so go check them out. Lately, I've been a big fan of Titty Milk and Acid Rain, but they've got dozens of other flavors for y'all to try out. Anyway, thanks again for reaching the end, and I hope you all have an amazing passage of the next 24 hours.